contributing to every single issue in that time, save for one issue due to an infamous postal mishap.
Easy to blame them.
He's also been illustrating Gru the Wanderer, his creator-owned series, for well over 30 years, and he is the most awarded cartoonist in all of history. So without any further delay, please join me in welcoming the 2016 Michigan State University Comics Forum guest of honor, Sergio Aragones.
Hello and welcome to the 9th Annual Michigan State University Comics Forum. My name is Sergio Aragones. It is interesting to talk because many of you are cartoonists and the majority of you are here because you know what I do. And before we were computers, I would have to go through a whole litany of things that I've done and where I've been and everything. But now you just Google me and you'll find it out. So also when I'm talking, if I go someplace else and if you want to ask about the subject that I'm talking, feel free to ask. You know, it's kind of informal. I know everybody already. But I started very young. I don't remember when I started. My parents tell me that I was always drawing, so they could take me any place. They give me a piece of paper and a pencil and put me behind a sofa, and that was it. When they had to leave, they just picked me up, and I already had to defend myself. And I was born in Spain, spent a few years in France during the war, and then emigrated to Mexico. Because I didn't speak Spanish, I spoke French. I was kind of afraid to mingle, so I would stay at home a lot and draw a lot. My influences, like the majority of cartoonists, are other cartoonists. I was fascinated by animation. When I was a kid, I asked my dad to buy me an inkwell. He was very proud that I already knew about inkwells and a pen. And so he bought me an inkwell and a pen and the thing, and I gave it back to him, telling him that it didn't work, that it was no good. So he went to that supply store and bought me a different ink and a different brush. No, it doesn't work. And after 3 or 4 intents, he says, well, why is it not working? He says, well, I draw a clown, but it doesn't come out of the inkwell. Well, I absolutely swear when I saw the animation that the guy really was drawing Coco the Clown. I didn't know about animation or anything, it's just that this cartoon was moving and mine didn't. So since that really early age I've been drawing. I went to school, I studied architecture, not because I wanted to be an architect. It was because I didn't want to do anything else but cartooning. So I could go to school, pretend that I was studying and do cartoons. My father had, as an immigrant, always they want the sons to succeed, to prove that the immigration worked. They go to a different country and they have to be better than what they left. So the majority of sons of immigrants, the idea is for them to go to school and to get better. I wanted to be a cartoonist, but he knows that in Mexico cartoonists don't get paid that much. So he insisted that I had to go. So I went, and I'm very thankful because it's not what I learned in school, it's the people I met. I met great guys. I studied philosophy. I spent the whole time at the coffee house. I made a lot of fantastic friends to this day, a lot of them still there. So I started cartooning in high school. I did cartoons for the newspaper. It was a mural newspaper because they have a machine called a mimeograph. And it was, you girls don't know what a mimeograph is because it's the worst thing in the world. It scratches, it gets teared apart, and they had to go like that and print it. It was a mess. So we decided to do it on the mural, and everything that had to be drawn was put over there, and the articles, and people who wanted to read the newspaper, they read it on the wall. So I did cartoons, and the editor, who was also in high school, decided that they were too good that I should send them to a professional magazine. And I said, no, they're not good. Please, I know, I see cartoons. So she took them there to a magazine called Haha. J-A-J-A, no, H-A. And that magazine published syndicated cartoons from the United States and some from France. So they bought them and they published them. So one day she comes back and says, Sergio is inviting us for lunch. I said, where? I don't have money. He says, yes, you have some. So that was the beginning of a professional career. Of course, after that, I couldn't sell a cartoon in my library. The initial sale was done. That was in 1954. And to this day, I haven't stopped publishing, which is really amazing. You guys have supported me. Thank you. I love comics. I love every form of humor, mostly pantomime humor. I was fascinated by the European cartoons, and I would go with my friends to hotels that sold foreign magazines, and they had all foreign cartoons. And for a moment, I decided that Mexico couldn't offer me any more fields. I was publishing in one of the leading magazines of humor. Not humor, it was a political magazine with a humor page at the end. And I was doing covers and all kinds of work. That was it. There was not. The other alternative was to go to Europe or go to the States. Flip a coin, the United States, I came, and that was it. It was a lot of fun. It was hard. After 2 months, everybody looked at my cartoons and says, these things are crazy. You should go to Mad Magazine. I said, I know Mad. Mad doesn't do cartoons. Mad does satire on movies, on everything. The cartoon guys, they don't. Single panels, much less. So they're not going to do it. But because everybody said, go there, I had to go, so I went. And I arrived to Mad, and I panicked. I didn't know what to say, so I said, Antonio Proillas, which is the cartoonist who drew Spy vs. Spy. And luckily, he was there. So he comes up, and he was the warmest person, wonderful human being. He saw me and said, oh, my brother, bienvenido, oh, que aquí, he didn't speak a word of English. So when I asked him, hey, can you introduce me to some of the editors for the thesis? You introduce yourself, I don't speak any English. So that was it. But they took my cartoons, and I waited, and I heard them laugh. I didn't know if they were laughing at it. They told me they were laughing. They come out and says, are you selling this? Of course. So they bought a couple of pages about astronauts. Mm-hmm. And that was the first one. And from that moment, I started selling them cover ideas. And they, one of the editors, Jerry DeFuccio, told me, he says, oh, this is very good. Bring another, bring something. And I said, my English was worse than it is now. But, and says, well, do one about motorcycle cops. Sure. So I went to the place I was staying. I don't want to call it a hotel because it was not a hotel, but really a dump. But I went, and next day before they opened the offices, I was there with all the cartoons. I have done about 20 guys about motorcycle cops. Well, that absolutely sold me in, because usually an artist would take a few weeks to think an artist. But the next day, before they opened, there he was. So, hey, terrific. Just, they bought it. And right at the moment, he says, well, we have enough material now, you can go back to Mexico. No, this is great. And in those times, that 62, they paid $50 per art and $50 per script. It was $100 a page. Comic books in the 60s were paying like $6 for a script and $14 per page and things like that. So they were very well paid. So So I wasn't going back. I was looking at a magazine. Oh, Jerry became a very dear friend of mine. And never wanted to leave the office. It was so much in it. All the original works by Jack Davis and Bob Rocker and all the guys, all the art was there. So they locked me in the office. They said, well, we have to put the alarm. If you want to stay, you have to stay until tomorrow. I said, it's fine with me. They had a coffee machine, they had a master. So I spent all my early days in New York, locked in the mad offices. And I would walk through the panels and look at all the cartoons and see how the amazing artwork that these people that already are hiring me to do cartoons for them, how can they compare? It was just, and I took a nap, and then they will open the office, put alarm, and then I leave. I come later, and I had the same thing. So it was great. I had such great memories of that. And I was looking at the magazine, and it had little sayings, the whole month. And I didn't understand it because my English was fine. So I went to James and said, what this means? Well, did you read this book? No. Well, then you won't understand it. And this what this means. So, did you see the movie? No. Well, then you won't get it. Well, what a great opportunity. We put little cartoons without words, everybody can understand it. So I told him, I said, no, that wouldn't work. So I said, of course it can work. So I drew them the real size, cut them out and pasted it up on top of the signs, and showed them to the editor, and they looked at them, and they went into a conference, and after they told me that, said, well, that's not a bad idea. I mean, I don't think he can come with many guys. How many pantomime guys on that size that fits the little corners can he do? Let's run him until he runs out of ideas. 50 years later, I'm saying, it's been an incredible experience. Matt has been more than an office. It has been a brotherhood. Bill Gates never signed a contract with Science. He said, well, you don't need a contract. If I don't like your work, you don't work for me. And if you don't like what I'm paying you, you can leave. So it sounded very good to me. And I stayed for many years until Warner's came in and things started changing. But I'm still having a great time. We took trips every year, the mad trips. Bill Gates would pay for the artists and the writers and the editors, the art director, the lawyer, the accountant, for a trip, and we went all over the world. Went to Tahiti, we went to African safaris, every place, all paid by Bill, and it was camaraderie, because we shared rooms. I was roommate with Al Jaffe, I was roommate with Don Martin, so it was, the people deeply, not only like colleagues, but as a family. And we took a trip to Mexico, which Bill Gates called me and said, well, you are from there, organize it. Right. So I went a week early, and I organized that trip of the century. They had to fight a bull. They had to go to a cantina to drink pulque. Well, name it, and they had to do it. And then they came home. My mother cooked for all of them. And she made a big paella, she's from Valencia. So I had in my garden, I had the mangas, my American family, and my family. It was probably, besides weddings and kids, it was sort of like the most memorable moment in my life. It was great. But anyway, that's basically my career. I've done all kinds of other things. I was very fortunate to meet many other cartoonists, except I am a member of the National Cartoon Society. And all the old-timers I met Rube Goldberg, the guy with the invention. I met Otto Sodro, who did a character called the Little King. So I met all these fantastic people. They were just sensational human beings, great guys. And there was, it's a very small community. If you are a doctor, you go to college, 100,000 doctors come out, and there's a lot of work. Doctors are lawyers, and architects, and engineers. But cartoonists, I don't know. It's a handful that you can say they are there, and I feel very privileged. And well, if you have any questions, just ask him. And many of you know how to draw, but cartooning has to do with movement, with expression, and see, when a fine painter draws, he has to draw a hand that looks like a hand, because if he doesn't look like a hand, he's a bad painter. When an artist have to they have to have certain proportions so that they are correct. But when a cartoonist draws a hand, you just go like this. Hey, there's a guy there. Yay! So it doesn't make a difference. A hand is a hand, for a cartoonist. And so this is a great advantage that we have. The expressions are what counts. When you buy one of those early books that talks about how to cartoon, and they have like a circle. This is a smile, and they go, this is a sad, this is a surprise. So they have kind of very basic, but after you develop your styles, then you just do the same thing, but with a little more. But basically it's the same. It's just that you develop a different style and go to that. Same thing with movement. When you have a guy walking in the booth, that is a circle, the guy goes like this, and he's walking. Yeah. So in cartooning it's the same thing. You have a guy walking. The guy's walking. Or you can go a little faster. The arms change. And they go a little faster than the. You can even go faster. It has to do with expression and the movement, and positions. It's very important for a cartoonist or for any artist that every object has a volume, a weight. So when they grab something, it's important to pay attention that and that you learn by looking yourself in a mirror, believe it or not. It's very important to have a mirror when you're drawing, because you can have an expression, you do your expression on the mirror, and then you just copy it, and you see what you do. Your mouth open, your eyes open, you get mad. So if you have a mirror, you can do all kinds of things just looking at a mirror. And the other thing is, if you have a mirror and you want to draw a guy drawing, you put this on the mirror and it becomes a right hand. Because if you want to draw a right hand, you'll be like this. On the mirror, and it's very, so it's a good thing to have. And as I said, each artist has a completely different style, and it doesn't work. I mean, it works for him, then sometimes it doesn't work for other artists. So we copy a lot when we're young, because we don't believe our things are good. It's us, how can it be good? But you see other artists and then you start copying them. And then there was an Argentinian cartoonist called Oski, which he was a master of, well, of course suddenly I start drawing like Oski, you know, because I like how he did it. And one day I discovered, I was in Mexico still, a cartoonist called Virgil Parch, V-I-P.
Virgil Parch.
Yes, oh, he was amazing. He had pointed noses, and his elbows had positions, and sometimes he drew 6 fingers, he didn't care. He was a total of a fantastic artist, Virgil Parch. And that was also another crucial moment. I said, I have to draw like Virgil Parch instead of drawing like Virgil. And slowly you keep. The more you draw, the more you change things. So that was it. Thinking a gag, you know, sometimes you see it, and the first thing you do was, okay, you think of a gag, and then you draw it. For instance, this is one that I thought is well, that has changed a lot lately because political correctness have crippled into humor. So now there's a lot of subjects that they are taboo that you cannot make fun of. And it limits the field. Sometimes I go to draw something and says, I cannot draw that. You know, that's not good. That it's offensive to women or to everybody. So you start sort of like becoming bland in a way, because there's a lot of subjects that you won't touch because that's about time. You know? That things should be a little better in respect to other people. It's an old saying from a Mexican president that said, el respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. The respect to the rights of others is peace, which is totally true. So if you cartoon, you respect the rights of others, then it'll be peace. They cannot say anything because you're respecting their beliefs. There's way to criticize certain things without offending to something that is offensive for them. And it goes on and on. But, so cartooning, the marginal basically, because I do a section called the Mad Look at, and the last issue had a Mad Look at Star Wars, the one that just came out. So sometimes I call it, hey, what about a Mad Look at butterflies? Nah, that's too limited. Something more modern. So we think of a subject, and I'm doing it. And then they call me, Sergio, the movie's coming out, you have to do a Mad Look at it. I says, but there's no scripts, there's nothing there. The old Star Wars, I've done that. So I'm worrying about making jokes about the new Star Wars without, because there was nothing on television, no books available. So we figured out by the time the magazine came out, it will be in time for the movie to come out so I could see it. So I went to see the movie, and of course it's a plethora of gags over there, and it's so silly. So, oh, sorry, guys. there was a lot of things that they were very to make fun of. So I had a great time with it. of that one. I have done before a takeoff on another J.J. Abrams movie called what's the one that, not Star Wars, but the Star Trek. I did a mad look at the Star Trek, and he liked it so much. His office called me and says that he wanted to buy the original. He says, well, I'd sell it to him if I go and show it to him in person, so I can read it. He says, sure. So I went there, and he was a very pleasant young man, so it was fun. So there's other advantages of doing those movies. Send the originals. So I do that mad look at, and then you have to do cartoons related to a particular subject. But because it's mad, it had to be not only one panel, like the marginals, it had to be like in a sequential panel. So instead of be one gag, like for instance, I have a gag with one panel is Chewbacca. And then in the second panel, he jumps and put and then in the third panel, they get that's the thing I can do, stop and drop this. So you take a subject, you think of a guy, and then you go from there. So that's the difference between a marginal and the things that you do. It has to be a little story, because Matt has little stories when they do a satire. They do that. So it's been a lot of fun, as you can see. Sometimes when I do the sketches, they are a little funnier than when I do the finishes. I like the spontaneity of the sketch much more than the finished work. It has a sense of happening there. And then I do comics. I love comics. I love storytelling. Since I was a kid, I was always inventing stories and telling them and draw them. But the comics, I could never draw realistic things. I never studied art, so that's one reason. It was very hard for me. So in humor, there were not that many comics. There were comics for teenagers. There were comics of funny animals. There were, but humor, the only really humorous comics came out with the underground. That was when really humor came into comics. And about the same time, I went to Europe. I spent a couple of years over there to meet other cartoonists and that I have admired for many years. In Spain and France. And I realized that in Europe, there's a lot of humor comics. Tintin, Asterix, Lucky Luke, enormous amount of comics in humor. So I figured that it can be done. So I started thinking, okay, what isn't there? And the first thing I thought, I was walking in Paris, and Tarzan, instead of Tarzan has an idiot brother, a twin brother who's an idiot. And everything he's going to do is ruin things. It's, great idea. And so it will be a Tarzan that is logical, and the other is an input book here. So I thought, oh, what a great idea. I walk in and I look, and it's a movie house, and it says, Tarzan, le frère de Tarzan. So, Tarzan's brother. Tarzan. So I went in, and there he was. Somebody has not only followed it before, they drew it and animated it. So then I thought of a barbarian, because there were no humor in barbarians. So, oh, this is fantastic. And I don't have to draw cars or airplanes or buildings or perspective. Jackets. They got these waves in his waves. These witches and dragons. Oh, this is perfect, perfect. So I started drawing it. And when I came back to the States, I went to the companies and I said, I have a great comic that I want you guys to publish it. And they said, this is something I have to own it. Ha! No way. That won't happen in the United States. We the companies own all the rights. All the copyright is ours. He says, no, in Europe, every cartoonist owns their own material. Well, here we owe it, so no. So I wasn't going to give it away, to share it. I wanted it to be my copyright. It took 10 years before a company came out and shared the rights. That was Pacific Comics. So in 1983, I was able to publish Gru owning it. It was a pleasure. And but that's what it was. Economically doesn't do justice to all the work, but it was mine. I could do whatever I want, and nobody was going to tell me anything. And one of the things, the clause on the contract was, in all the comics in Marvel, they says, Stan Lee presents. He says, I don't want Stan Lee to present me. Sergio Aragones, and that's it. Oh, the lawyers wrote it. No, it has to say Stanley presents. He says, no, it doesn't have to. It's my comic. So I prevail, and it doesn't say Stanley presents. Things like that helps our good property. And so I had a great time with Drew, with the help, of course, of Mark Evanier, a great writer and a great collaborator. And without him, Drew will be a silent cartoon. With all the written gags and all that word humor, it's Mark. So it's a different process of working. I think story, or sometimes I meet with Mark and he says, okay, let's do a story about this and that, and blah, blah, blah. We talk a little about it, then I go and write the stories. Then I give it to him, and he changes. He never put a word that I already put on. Always something different before, which is great. Oh. And then he goes to Stan Sakai. He's a great artist. Usagi Yojimbo. Well, it goes back to me. I draw the pencil pages, the large ones. We draw in the pages 11 by 17. I draw them and send Stan the script and the page, and then he letters, then it comes back to me, and then I do the balloons around the dialogue. And now I know the expression. Before, when I did it on pencil, but I didn't know what was going to be the final word of group. So the page was like that, and then here are the words. Then I will go. I will put the dialogue and do it like this. It has a dog. And because I don't know, it's because I grew up in Mexico. In Europe, all the stories that I remember as a kid, they had a moral at the end of the story, a conclusion. And I wanted that to be in group, that whatever happened, it was because a moral at the end of the story. And we did it. We did that for 120 issues. With that thing. And I wanted to give him a companion, because if he's such an idiot and he's alone, he's always thinking. And if he's thinking, he cannot be that dumb because he's thinking. So he has to have a counterpart. I found that in issue 29. And I figured out, well, if I put another guy, if he's smarter than Gru, Gru will become a second banana. If he's dumber, it doesn't make any sense. So, or he'll kill in 3 panels. So I figured a dog would be a great companion, and a mastic. That's too much the same. And meanwhile, there's my dog looking at me. She's a Queensland killer. This was referred to. So I started drawing him, which I regret later because it has polka dots. So if I draw the dog, I had to draw polka dots on that dog. But it was a perfect companionship. Many of you don't know the story. Gru keeps the dog because he thinks, well, if one day I'm hungry, I have food. So he keeps it as food for the future. So every time he does something, defends the dog, it's not defending the dog, it's protecting his food. But the dog thinks that he's saving him or he's bad thing. So that dog adores Gru, like, that's it, Gru cannot do any mistakes. So it was a good marriage between the 2 characters. And very fortunately, we've been doing it for, I don't know, since '83. And I'm still doing it right now. We finished a 12-issue called Friends and Foes. And I'm doing now called Fry of the Gods, which I'm going to talk about that. All the conflicts that we have are based on beliefs. From the Inquisition to nowadays, everything is based on beliefs. So that's the subject. It's going to be about people and their relation with the gods. And of course, Gru is going to screw up everything. But it's going to be 12 issues, and that's what I'm working on. And the advantage is that it's a permanent work, all the time. There's no things like, okay, I finished working, I'm going to watch television with my kids or my wife. No, it is a permanent work. Every day, every night, you are constantly working, thinking gags for math, drawing them. You can never divorce yourself from the career that you have chosen. The drawing part of it and the thinking of it, which takes a lot of time too. And I don't regret it for a second. It's been a very comfortable. I don't think I have worked a day in my life, ever. When I was younger, my father was in the movie industry. He came to Mexico and as a immigrant, there's not that many jobs. And one day he reads in a newspaper that they needed extras that looked Spanish because they were making a movie called La Virgen que formó una patria, the Virgin that made a country, about the Virgin de Guadalupe, and it was about the Mexican War against the Spanish. And they needed Spanish soldiers. So then my father, as an extra, I have stills of it, that's essentially. And so he loved it. He didn't have to do anything except get in costume and wait a few hours and then go. And they would pay him for that. So he became an actor. And then he realized that producing is a better entrance. So he became a production assistant and he became a manager of production. And he ended as a producer, producing movies in Mexico. So he wanted me to get into that career since I was a kid. Sadly, I didn't like any part of the movie making. I love movies, but I like movies. Making movies is the hardest thing in the world. But not if you make movies. You're not despairing when you do, but actors go there at 6 o'clock in the morning, they sit, they make up and wait and memorize all these lines. I don't want to do that for the rest of my life. And I'm not a director type. I cannot tell guys. That's not good. If he's good, it's good. Then if he's bad, yes, I can say that's not good. I cannot say, no, that's not what I want. I could not be a director. So there was not one part of the whole thing that I enjoyed. With comics, I am everything. I design the clothes, I direct, I do the scenery, I edit, everything. This is a lot of fun. And nobody tells me anything, so it's great. So I substitute that and I will change it for the world. And any questions about any of the fields or anything that I was saying? Oh my God. But anyway, movies. Yeah, when I was in college, my best friend was in the theater group. So we finished class, and I would go for him, and I would sit over there when they were rehearsing. And of course, where is Maria? She didn't come today. Sergio, can you read these lines? Okay. I'm doing nothing, so I started reading lines. I'm being there, with my friends and with that. So I started doing theater in architecture, but for the fun of being there, not because I wanted to be an actor. It was a good learning experience, seeing things done from the inside. And we did a few plays and had a great time. Much later, in the States already, I was doing the animation for a show called Laughing, which was on TV. And the director, the producer of the show, George Slaughter, was doing a movie called Norman Is That You, with Red Fox and Pearl Bailey. And see me and says, Sergio, I need a motel manager in Mexico. What I had to do? Nothing, just have the telephone talk with Red Fox, and you have to look Mexican. Okay. So, that was my part in that movie. I was in Norman Is That You, and I am in a hotel manager, which I never talked to him because he was sitting there. So that was one movie. And the other one, which is even funnier, is called To Kill a Stranger. I get a call from a director called Juan Lopez Montezuma. And Juan worked with me on the theater in Mexico. We did a play called The Skin of Our Teeth, Thornton Wilder. And we were both dinosaurs. I was a dinosaur, and he was the other dinosaur. So we spent the whole first time just talking to each other. Pretending to be dinosaurs. So he became a movie director. And he told me that he was going to do a movie in Europe, in one of the behind the curtain countries. And they need actors who don't look Mexican, look Spanish, and they spoke English. And I said, sure. So I signed a contract. But of course, it was shot in Mexico because they didn't get the money, and the country didn't want to do it. So I did another movie with Donald Pleasence, Aldo Ray, the guy who did the boy with the green hair, Dean Stockwell. And that was fascinating. I spent a couple of weeks making a movie in Mexico with my wife and the kid, and we had a great time. And I was a villain, a bad soldier. But I went there because it's a very fun story. I finished shooting, and I'm dressed like a military guy. Right? Got a gun, the mustache was trimmed, and it was black there. My kepi, military guy. And I'm walking outside, and I see Mary Feldman, which I adore. You know, he was a fantastic comedian. Remember in John Frankenstein?
Yes, yeah.
And I saw Mary, and I went, Mary Feldman, and he went, I'm not a cop, you know, because he was a stone. I'm not a police, it's not a real I'm a cartoonist. No, I'm a cartoonist playing an actor and trying to. But he's good just one. Please, look, and I run. The guy was terrified. So I go and ask the director, hey, can I leave tomorrow a little early so I can change? And go and apologize to my family and said, hello. I said, what did you hear? He died last night. So he had died last night, you know. So we had a chance to go and apologize to him. So I wrote a story for a comic book that I'm doing called Sergio Aragones Funnies. We did 12 issues with Bongo, and I put personal stories in it. And one of the stories is called I Killed Marty Feld. That because of the altitude, next to 6,000 feet of the sea level, and he was stoned and his heart gave up. It was a good title. So I've been doing a lot of personal stories for the comics all the time. And I'm doing, again, another new series of 12 issues of Sergio Aragones Funnies for Dark Horse. But that's what happened. Anecdotes succeed without me trying to do anything about it. It just happens to me. That was a funny one. And once I met Richard Nixon also, that was a funny story. So I have a lot of personal stories. So if you see any of the issues, Sergio Aragones Funnies is Toshiro Mifune came to Mexico to make a movie with my dad called Animas Trujano, and he plays a Mexican Indian. And when I am a super fan of his work, Akira Kurosawa's movie, and when I saw him, I was fanboy number one. I followed my dad, no matter where he turned, there I was. to be with Toshiro Mifune, that was a lot of fun. So I wrote that story too. But yeah, so it's, yes, sir.
Yes, I'm just wondering, with all these experiences, have you ever thought of maybe combining them all to make it like a graphic autobiography, like Stan Lee did?
Well, no. It's I do a few in the comic, and I think I have enough to have a lot of them, but they are not in order. They are not biographical, they are memoirs.
Well, maybe you could combine them or something like
Sure.
a collection.
Yeah, when I die.
Like maybe an
Oh, I got a comic for when I die. I will be working in comics. That's no matter how old I am, I'll be working on the comic. So I'm going to draw me dying in three ways. I could be dying like in my desk, or in a hospital bed, or leave a panel blank. Who knows what happened? And then I'm going to go to heaven. And then I'm going to meet a lot of people who are dead. And I'm going to have all these interviews and find out about religions and all that thing. So it's going to continue. I'm going to write it and until I find an ending. And so the moment I die, they will put that on that.
And then maybe you'll apologize to Marty Feldman.
Yes. So it'll be probably the first comic written after death. But, so it's fun. But yeah, probably one day we'll be in collection. Yes, sir.
I've been a Gru fan all my life. I just have one question.
Yeah.
It's really dumb and I'm a big nerd, but the currency from the world of Gru, is that an inside joke or where did that come from? Is there a story behind that, the word?
The copies?
Yes.
No. I didn't want to call it dollars. I didn't want to call it anything, so we invented a
Just came up one day, you're like, oh, that's a good.
Yeah, if you go through the comics, the words that I use are a lot of Spanish words.
Yes.
I call the witches of brujas. Well, brujas means witches in Spanish. El conquistador, the conquest of caballo. Of course, caballo is horse. So it's a playing words, mostly I do. And a lot of the names are names that really exist. So they are like inside little jokes. With coppins, it was a word that sounded coinage. Coppins. It's word for copy. Coppins, coppins, coppin. So it worked. Yes.
Can you just explain how you came up with the name Gru for Gru the Wanderer?
Well, that's the hard part. You think of a character, and then you have to give it a name. So I figured out that it has to be a barbarian name. So I spent a lot of weeks going, and mostly a lot of them came with a GR, Oh, Gru. So I figured out Gru. Sounded like a good name, Gru. So first thing I wanted to find out if there was any Grus on the telephone directory. I didn't find any. So that was terrific. So we call him Gru the Wonder. And the comic comes out for Pacific. And lo and behold, I get so many letters from people called Gru. and notes, there was a criminal guy who had escaped, his name was Gru. In Florida, there was a banker called Gru. And another guy in some place else had the license plate Gru. And so there was and I live in a small town, 8,000 people in Ohio. The drugstore lady who was attending, her father's name is Gru. It was just a total coincidence, you know. Gru. That was just, yes, ma'am.
After so many series of comics, how do you continue to keep it fresh, and how do you continue to keep it relevant in the field?
Well, that's a big suffering, because as soon as you finish a series, you know you have to continue doing, and you want to be fresh, and you want to be new, and all the stories they have been told. All the stories have been told. But it's the way you tell them. You change your way to narrate something that you are interested in. All of them are based on a little reality. You read an anecdote, you read, find out something that happened, and then you elaborate from there. I remember while reading about a mayor in a town that said that he will welcome every homeless in his town. Well, of course, that was a perfect idea for a true story, because this guy lost it that he kind of said, and of course, Ruth brings all the homeless from all over the place, you know, and ruins the town. In my hometown, there's a canyon over there, and they wanted to put garbage in it, you know, to fill it up and use it as a garbage dump. And of course, the whole town went making notes and quotations and everything. Says, that's a perfect story. So in a world of Gru, they want to fill this canyon with garbage, which of course is Gru's solution. And everything is working very fine until it rains and all the garbage goes to the next town and ruins the whole thing. So you base something that is real and just twist it around and make it fun. And you go on and on and on and hope that. But don't forget that's all I do. I sit there and think for hours. And to this day, my wife says, "Oh, Sergio, you are doing nothing. Can you go on? Go to the corner with the mails and stuff." Of a great unity storytelling, you know. So it, but no, it's you think, and things not appear by magic. You draw a lot, like the gentleman there, fill books and books with drawings, and eventually you find your niche. And the stories is the same. The more you think about it, the better you become. And nowadays, a lot of people say, "Well, what's the future of comics? You know, the future of this. Are we in a bad state of comics?" No, this is the golden times for young people. Before there was 3 places to put cartoons. They were the comic strips, which were completely elitist, and you will submit to a newspaper. They will get 1,000 submissions to choose one. They made a lot of money, but there was no way you could enter if you were not exactly protected. The other was the comics, but the certain genres that you had to draw on paper, and it was that thing. It was okay. They were selling pretty good. Advertisement, very little cartooning. Magazine cartooning. There was a lot of magazines, so you go there with your magazine. The way it worked for freelance cartoonists then, every Wednesday in New York, this is in the 60s, you fill up your folders with new cartoons, about 15 new cartoons, and you'll go to magazines. You go to the ones that pay better, like New Yorker, and then you bring your cartoons and take the ones that you brought the previous week, and then you went to see you make any sales. No, you didn't. So you go to the next magazine, let's say Gentleman. You go to Gentleman, and you bring the cartoons that you brought to the New Yorker, and pick up the ones that you brought and see if you make any sales. If you did one, you sold it, and that's perfect. So you keep a track of every cartoon that every magazine in New York, everything was in New York in the 60s. The fashion world, photography, models, publishing, everything was in New York. So, if you, at the end of the day, you went to visit all the magazines, did the rounds, and you go to a bar called the Pen and Ink, meet all the other cartoonists, and talk about cartooning. It was a lot of fun. I didn't have a chance to do it too long because after a couple of months I was already working for MAD. But that was a process for the magazine. And there were a lot of magazines, so a lot of cartoonists could sell pretty good. But slowly, magazines have disappeared, including Playboy. Is not publishing cartoons anymore. They pay very well. I never submitted them. So magazines are dead for magazine cartoons. There's no more. Then you have the comic strips. The newspapers are dying. So the comic strips are disappearing because they cannot pay, because they don't have advertisement, and it's very low circulation. And they said, well, where's the golden time? There's more television stations, there's more computer things, there's telephones, there's everything, and they need humor, they need cartoons. So now is the time for a young man that gets into computers and knows how to cartoon and learns how to do cartoons and humor. This is the perfect time because the old fashion is gone. That's happened with everything. That's how things evolve. But now is the time for a young cartoonist to get into it. Because there's a lot of animation, there's a lot of things. So it's a great field to be in. Sir.
Can you talk about the role that research plays in making your comics? I've heard you talk about taking glass blowing classes to see how people's hands move so that you can draw them and things of that sort. I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit.
Sure. Well, in cartooning, like probably in every aspect of life, the better you do it, the better the cartoonist, whatever you do it. And that has to do a lot with research. For instance, if you're doing a gag about golf, I don't play golf, but I've seen a lot of pictures how the guys stand up, how they do things, and then you feel it, and then you can draw it. You can draw it in a better way than if you just grab a stick like this. A guy who plays golf says, that's not how you do it. So when you play baseball also you have certain positions. And many years ago in Mexico, this is the 50s, there's a gentleman that I consider very few that I can call a genius. His name is Alejandro Jodorowsky. He's a gentleman from Chile. And he's a great mind. He was part of Marcel Marceau troupe. He writes comics in France, the best comics with Moebius. He's just an amazing writer, an amazing philosopher, an incredible talent man. And when Marcel Marceau came to Mexico, the university wanted Marcel Marceau to give some classes to the students. But he couldn't because he had all his program completely full. So Alejandro Jodorowsky, who speaks perfect Spanish because he's from Chile, decided that he could do the classes. So he stayed in Mexico and opened a class and did pantomime. So when I heard that he was staying, I have seen him play with Marceau. I went there because we had a free pass at college. So we went almost every day to see Marceau, but he was there. And I was amazed because there's a man who, without words, is conveying everything that I try to do with the cartoons. So I was totally, in awe. So I went with the students and I could translate for them, because he only spoke French. And the only word in English he knew was no. That's from a movie from so I went to Alejandro and I said, look, I want to take your classes, but I don't want to be a mime. A mime usually is shorter, and everything weights, it has weight. So. But I want to learn what a mime does with your hands. And he thought it was a great idea, so I joined the pantomime for research. And even though I had to participate, but the only thing I was, for instance, an armoire, a little bit. Well, it was fireworks, and then. but to do the real pantomime, I never had to do anything. But you take the class and you learn from the inside, it's a class of that. And then you have to keep that hand there, so people believe that it's still there. But that teach me a lot about inside movements. So everything that I can learn how to apply to my work, I learn. I take classes, I do ceramics, I did the stained glass, I did block glass, I do jewelry. Not because I want to be a jeweler or anything, it's because every time you look at a brew and there's a bold jeweler there, the tools are right, the actions are right, if he's doing food, it's right. That research makes what I think, for me, very satisfactory work because everything fits. And what it does is, there's a moment where if you do movies, when you're watching the movie, it takes you to inside the movie and you are believing what you see. But suddenly, it's a bad cut or a costume that doesn't belong there or a bad actor, and it breaks that thread of continuity. Same thing with the comics, even though it's very subliminal. You're reading a comic and going, and suddenly there's something that you see that is wrong. A badly drawn car, a badly drawn something, and it breaks that continuity of the comic. And I don't think that happens with Groom, because I pay a lot of attention for that not to happen. I want even a guy who does ceramics to say, hey, yeah, that's how ceramic works. Even though he doesn't think about it, he's not complaining about it. It's part of it. So I do a lot of research, and a lot of colleagues do that too. Now with the internet, it's easier. I have a collection of books that you won't believe about things, but now I go Google. My poor books are full of spiders. But yes, sir.
This is probably a little more serious, but political satire is, cartoonists and political satire were thrown on the front pages after Charlie Hebdo. And I'm wondering what are some of the conversations you and your friends had about that. And you're a great satirist, but I'm also wondering what you feel about doing political satire. Because it's making fun of people, whereas like what you said before, it's not.
No. Sometimes the political satire, the gentleman is asking about what happened in Charlie Hebdo in France. But sadly, one of the cartoonists was a friend of mine, Polinsky. I met him in '65. And every time I went to France, I would have dinner with him and everything. Sometimes the political cartoonists in the United States, they have to sell on a publication that thinks like them. If the publication doesn't think like them, they won't buy his cartoons. So if the newspaper is right, they will buy a rights. If he's from the left, they will buy from the left. There's no in between. And in many other places, the political cartoonist thinks whatever he thinks and puts it on there. And sometimes there's a very fine line. The reason I don't do political cartoon is because I come from a political family. And the first thing my father told me is, don't get into politics because you're going to be very disappointed. If you take a position, you have to really believe in it. You cannot be ambivalent about it. No matter what it is, you have to believe in it and defending it. And sometimes they're wrong. A friend of mine, one of the best cartoonists in the world, his name is Rios. He publishes in Mexico. He's an amazing author, has published over. And he's a communist. And he was in Cuba, he was in Russia, he defends the whole thing about it. But suddenly Russia collapsed. And everything that he believed and everything is totally devastated. Because suddenly that position is not there. So I knew from the beginning that I didn't want to get into it and I never did, personally. With Charlie Hebdo, sometimes they go overboard. Because you can make fun of certain things. You can make fun of the gentleman's shirt or his shoes, but if you make fun of his wife, you are breaking the law of logic. In the United States, they make fun of the president, not of his office, but of his personal things, which I find immensely offensive, because the president is serving a function, voted or elected. So you can make fun of his office, of what he's doing. But when you start making fun of his race or his family or bad, I think that there's a breakage there someplace. Sometimes many cartoonists break that invisible line of making fun of what some people are doing wrong by the beliefs that these people have. And as I said before, el respeto al derecho ajeno es la paz. If you respect the rights of others, there'll be peace. You know, I'm not condoning what they did to them. I was a good friend. And that was brutal, and things like that shouldn't happen. But they knew what they were getting into, the way they were doing it. They told me, hey, don't mess with that because this is serious. So it happens. And a lot of political cartoons get killed. They get put in jail because of their beliefs. And I didn't do it. I didn't become a political because of cowardice or anything. It's just I was following my father's advice because he loved the United States a lot. And when Second World War started, because he had fought against Franco, who was a fascist, the United States didn't want him here. So he resented that a lot. You know? But he loved it to this day because of the movies and everything and the culture, you know, jazz. So, and he loved when I came here. So it's a tough situation. It's a delicate thing. But here, sadly, you have to, if you want to publish, you better find the right place. There's no retreats.
More question.
Oh, yes, young girl.
So,
Yeah.
how did you get to work at Dark Horse? Waiting pattern or did you go there?
Well, sometimes you're right to a position, and you just go there and say, hey, publish this. No, it's a Gru was first published by a company called Pacific Comics. It was the first company who shared the rights. I mean, so it says, no, the rights are yours. Just publish with us. We'll publish it. You own it. Neil Adams, very good cartoonist, went there. Jack Kirby went there. Mike Grell, the people who did the elves.
Skinny.
Pini, and myself, and Mark, and they publish us for 8 issues. And then they decide to get into distribution, bought big warehouses, spend a lot of money, and suddenly they went broke. So I had an issue left, so I published it with Eclipse. I didn't have any more. So by now, all the good artists were realizing that they can own the rights of the material. So Marvel decided, wait a minute, we're losing a lot of talent over here. Let's create another line, another title, and give them the rights. And they did. So did DC. So I went with Marvel for 10 years, and I did 120 issues with it. And then I figured out, well, I need a new audience, because that's 120 issues, the same people. So I went to Image. So Image published 12 issues, and the only thing we got is complaining letters. I collect Image, now I have to collect Groove. So we did 12 issues with them, and then we said, okay, what other company can we screw up? So we went to Dark Horse, and they were delighted. And so we did publishing with Dark Horse, terrific people. We have a good understanding. Yeah.
We missed someone who had his hand up for a long time.
Yes.
You touched on similar topics, but reading your cartoons in Mad Magazine growing up, it always reminded me of great silent film comedy, like Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton. I was wondering, was that an influence on you at all, or was it something?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, very much so. That all together, from the animated cartoons that they didn't have any words, to Jean-Louis Barrault, Marcel Marceau, Chaplin, to Jacques Tati. I met Jacques Tati.
Really?
Yeah, Jacques Tati is a French comedian. He did Mon Oncle and Les Vacances de Monsieur Hulot, and a lot of things. And then he did a show for the producer of Laughing, and so I wrote a few things for these sketches I was doing Laughing, and this was going to be another show called It's a Wacky World. And so he calls me and we start talking and says, I love what you're doing for me, I want to buy your cartoons. And I went, oh, Jacques Tati was my cartoon. And I says, well, he delighted, says, well, I pay per cartoon, so I pay $5 per cartoon. Bien. No. No. So I decided that was not my fee. But the silence have been always my big influence in everything I do. And my favorite ones that spoke later, I mean, they still the best. We call them in Spanish, el gordo y el flaco. Gordon and Hardy. This is the best. But no, yes, pantomime has been very good.
All right, I hate to say it, but we have to feed this man tonight, so let's give him a break more. Sergio will be available in Artist Alley tomorrow, 2 floors upstairs from 11 to 5 p.m. He's also got a more informal talk at 1:30 p.m. You're welcome to come there as well. Thank you so much for coming out and making this such a successful keynote speech tonight. Thank you, everyone.